to do is we thought a panel discussion would be the best thing to talk about. Our topic is growing and sustaining your practice. So we thought inviting panelists of folks that live and breathe with this, and we're going to lead off with Craig, who's our practice director for National Solutions, which means we get on airplanes. But he's also our chief essentialist and owns the transformation side of our business as one of our key practices, and that's what I'm a member of.
So I'm going to take a few minutes here and just talk about a little bit of context, and that is business architecture in the context of transformation. More and more enterprises, companies, organizations are going through some level of significant transformation. So just set the tone. So transformation is just another form of change. Organizations go through change every single day, incremental change, step change, process change. Transformation is really the culmination of the highest form of change. This really just talks about where does the change come from? Where does the transformation come from? So I'm here in Houston, and every single client we meet with is only talking about the oil and gas industry, which has changed 180 degrees in the past year. So the triggers for transformation can happen anywhere from a small department to global economic conditions, and just understanding where it's coming from is important when going through change. In many cases, it's all four of these things, and it's plugging all four of these components together to know how are we going to adapt to it. So this slide really talks to what are people experience when they go through significant change. The first one I think is really amazing. 90% of corporate strategies are never implemented. So think about that first. Every year, strategies come out. 9 times out of 10, they're not implemented. That's staggering. And I think business architecture is a great answer to that question, and part of why business architecture is here is to help get corporate strategies implemented better than they have been in the past. 70% of complex initiatives fail. That's been an age-old statistic, and 67% of projects are in some sort of dysfunction, challenge, or impaired. One stat that's, again, staggering is 17% of all large-scale projects, so these large transformation efforts go so bad they really threaten existence of the company. Again, very staggering that it has that significant of an impact. So these are the 5 things that, when we look at transformation, the 5 disciplines that we believe are those transformations that allow success. Business architecture is at the top for a good reason, and you really have to start with strategy. What is the strategy of the organization? And what business architecture allows is that translation from strategy to capability to business process to make it real and to get that alignment. And so that's just critical. Obviously, you need technology to support that business architecture. What's the best leverage of technology to support the business architecture that you intend to have? Governance is around making decisions from the board level to the executive team down to the people doing the work. Program management is managing it so it can be on time, on budget, managing cash. And change leadership is there's a lot of people involved. And how do people come along with change and really adopt the change that's happening? So to me, this is a great topic today. I'm really excited to hear from Greg and Tim and the rest of the folks in the room about how to sustain business architecture, because we don't believe that you can really have transformation without really solid capabilities around business architecture. And more we're seeing organizations go through transformation. Business architecture really needs to be, at the start and at the table the entire way in order to achieve what they're trying to achieve. There we go. So if anyone wants to know more about enterprise transformation, we do have a group that's dedicated to it. It's on LinkedIn. It's called Enterprise Transformation 2020. It's a global group of about 750 professionals that are active on the topic of enterprise transformation.
So my name is Greg Murphy. I work in the business architecture area at Ameriprise Financial. And so what my group does is we really focus on the distribution side of our business, or the sales group. So Ameriprise has 3 different businesses. One is really our sales organization, or financial planners, things like that. The two other organizations have to do with the manufacturing of products in our brokerage areas and in our life and annuity areas. So I work in the sales side of things, which is great because it's always cool to work with sales, right? So what I wanted to do today is I wanted to talk a little bit about. I know that each of you you're at a different place in a journey with business architecture. Somebody probably is sitting here and has a really, really formal business architecture practice that has very mature practices and very mature conversations with your executive team. And there are probably some of you that are really just starting out, or you're hoping to do business architecture, or you just kind of do it a little bit, right? So what I wanted to do today is actually hit a little bit of all those audiences and kind of draw upon my years of experience of really trying to do things that are business architecture-ish, right? And there is definitely a spectrum of maturity for business architecture. So I just wanted to hit a few points of how to mature a business architecture practice, no matter where you're at, right? And I think the first thing, and by the way, I've actually learned most of what I've learned in business architecture by making mistakes and trying things that really haven't worked. And then so you try something else and then you figure out what actually works. And the first one is really know your audience. And so what I mean by that is, depending on where you're at, your audience might be executives. Your audience might be mid-level management. It might be finance. It might be IT. It might be a business area that is going through transformation. And so really knowing your audience is kind of the first step, right? Know why you're doing what you're doing. I don't know about you guys, but I have seen so many business architecture-ish, I'll say that a lot, initiatives fail because we don't even really know why we're doing it. Like, why are we doing this again? And so really making sure that you are very crisp about why you're doing it. If it takes you a long time to describe why you're doing business architecture, then I would suggest reformulate that, right? Because I like to say, I'm doing business architecture because it helps us understand where we're spending our money. Like that quick, that crisp, right? It helps us understand if we're going to spend money on something, is it worth it? Right? So really, really crisp. Why are we doing this? And be really crisp about that. Keep it simple. Ask people what they do and write it down for them. There's business architecture can be so complicated to so many people, and when a lot of times the kind of my favorite business architecture efforts that I've ever done, I've done things. Well, I call it kind of the from-to exercise. I'm looking at some of my friends from Thrive in here. Remember, Jake, our from-to exercises, right? Where you sit down with a business area and you say, okay, tell me what you do, and you can only give me 5 things. That's it. Tell me what you do in 5 things. They don't have to be steps. Just tell me the 5 things you do. I can see it. I can see it in several people's eyes. When you sit down and you ask people that question, a lot of people can't tell you. They can't tell you what it is they do, or they struggle. They're like, well, you process claims. What else do you do? Why do you do that? You know, just making sure that they can actually succinctly say, these are the 5 things we do. It is the greatest start for capabilities, because I find that those simple discussions with business people really helps you get that beachhead with business architecture. And you can, in one meeting, have them develop their own business architecture. Involve finance early. This is probably my #1 learning in all years of doing business architecture is get money involved. Get finance involved. Tell them what you're doing. Tell them why you're doing it. I have made more friends in finance using business architecture than any other group in the company. Because they love the structure, they love the models, they love they love mapping, they love that kind of stuff. And if you can even help them take a GL line and map it to business capabilities, oh my gosh, you are their hero, right? So if you're sitting in a business architecture role, I don't even care how advanced you are. If you are not involving finance, and if they're not part of the process, tomorrow start getting them involved, and you will see a transformation of your business architecture effort. So there's a template that we were provided to fill out for each initiative. So I was working with members of my staff, and we were going through these templates. I hadn't seen it before. It was a new template. So I looked at the template, and lo and behold, at the bottom of the template is a section where you have to identify the capability that you're going to invest in. I about fell off my chair, you know, because I've been working with finance for about the last 8 months to try and help them understand why we're doing, and I'm just one little group within the company, but I didn't know they did it, but I don't even care. I'm just so thrilled. I'm so thrilled that every single person in the company that is asking for money this year has to identify the capability that they're going to mature, and they have to identify on a scale of 1 to 5 how much they're going to mature it. I just wanted to, it was just awesome, you know, so it's just one of those things that over time happens to grow, and the only reason that happened was because finance was involved. So this is a slide that I developed when I first came to Ameriprise a couple of years ago. Nobody wanted to talk about capabilities. Everyone wanted to talk about software, tools. And so in our business, a financial advisor that's running a little financial advising office, I think there's even some in this building, right? There's financial advisors here. In any given day, they use up to 70 different software tools to do their job, right? So everyone wanted to talk about tools and where's the roadmap for that tool and, you know, things like that. So when I came with my first capability model, they looked at me like I had a third eye. Like, what are you talking about? I want to see the roadmap for the tools. You know, where are we going with Contact Manager? I want to see where we're going with that tool. So what I did, I did this about a month after I was there. I identified the capabilities, which are kind of the big blocks, if you will, and I just mapped it to their tools. And this is one of those slides, you know, you develop those slides that you carry around with you, or you see other people carrying it, or they show up in other people's decks, things like that. This is one of those slides. So I took all of the assets in our entire division that our advisors use, and I mapped them to capabilities. Just one simple slide, right? This was one of those, what I would call a killer slide, that advanced that maturity of business architecture, and it didn't take me that long. I mean, this took me like a day. It was no big deal. But just taking that time, drawing a picture, mapping things together in a business context with the language that they gave to me, it just changed the game. So all of a sudden especially when you're new in a company, people don't always accept your meetings when you send meeting notices, right? So all of a sudden everyone was accepting my meeting notices because I was like, oh, you developed that slide, I want to talk to you, right?
So I'm Tim Jennissen. I work at BlueCross, BlueShield, Minnesota. I've been there 3.5 years. And I started as an enterprise architect there, principal, and probably a little over a year and a half ago, we had a significant reset in terms of our discipline. We went from we call ourselves enterprise architects, and we had solution architects, but we were engaging at the wrong time. We were engaging once a project was already somewhat baked, so our influence was somewhat limited. It wasn't at an enterprise level. And so fortunately, we had some leadership that recognized that and said, no, we need to do something different. And with that, they split the group and they pushed our solution architects to the delivery teams. And for the enterprise architects left over, we ended up going to an enterprise level. And with that, clear lines of engagement in terms of our business units. So that was significant. So me personally, I am personally engaged with our front office, which includes product development, marketing, sales, and our consumer experience. And of all the things that I've done to set up a foundation for success, building a relationship with your business partners is, I consider, #1. You gotta have a relationship before you can start doing all the other things you need to do. And so I physically actually put myself in that business unit. I'm a squatter, but with that, I'm so present all the time that I engage in different discussions. Drive-bys are probably the most valuable, even beyond meetings, because I'm there, I'm present, I can hear things, I'm experiencing the frontline experience. More importantly, I can empathize with their situation and the challenges they face day to day. And so we had different strategic pillars that we're aiming for. The good news is BlueCross has a strong brand, a presence, and our value system is strong, and that has stayed the same. But in terms of how we operate, we need to do something. So our team was called on to say, take a crack at it. We need to get this program and this transformation shaped up. We need to understand what do we do, what are our assets, and what's going to change, essentially. So what we did, just a quick timeline, we went out and we actually facilitated a definition of a capability model end to end. We started in November of 2013, and by March, we had a capability model. And the key to this is we didn't define it, our business partners did. What do you get from that? You get accountability, you get ownership, and pride in ownership in terms of, yeah, we define this is what we do. Going through that process was interesting in itself because we had business owners and stakeholders that hadn't really sat down and think about what do we do, to Greg's point. And more importantly, we brought different departments together. So product development is an example. We had 4 different departments. You got government, you got individual, small group, large group, right? Bringing them together, and they go, gosh, we really haven't talked, especially with government. And government always felt like the stepchild. So, and the end result was a model that we had common language. So the benefit was in the process of defining it, in addition to us learning our business and what we do, was a significant thing. And more importantly, now we had a basis of information to drive from. Right behind that, in parallel, we started folding in cross-mapping. So architecture is all about map, 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 map. You know, map our assets. So we mapped applications, we mapped vendors, we mapped data stores. Through that whole process, there's a ton of assets we need to map, and we have to recognize what makes sense, what doesn't make sense to map. We have to be pragmatic, and one of the other key success factors was that we had to be timely. The program transformation is moving forward. If we didn't meet this certain time frame, we missed the boat. Guess what? The value proposition on a given deliverable goes down the toilet because they don't care, right? Because we've already moved on. Sorry, thanks for your effort. But so trying to stay ahead of that and finding those opportunities sooner than later so we could actually get in front of it was probably one of our bigger challenges. The good news is, fast forward today, we actually pushed all those models into a tool, and we continue to manage it within that tool in terms of maintaining it. The benefit of a tool is it helps provide a mechanism for, in the longer term, potentially contributors to manage and input the data. Currently, we're going to control that because we don't want to pollute the data. And at the same time, get the information out. Because why do we collect data? We need information. We need to have informed decisions. That's really what it comes down to. When my wife goes, what do you do? And I said, well, to be really candid, we gather lots of information, we put it in models, and serve it up so people can make decisions. Informed decisions is really what it comes down to.
When you were doing the capability mapping at the very beginning, did your team actually lead that effort? And did you also start with a draft prior to bringing those groups of people together?
So good question. So 2 questions. One, did we lead it? Yes, we did. And I would say we facilitated that process. And then 2, we didn't come in with a blank sheet of paper. We put together and we looked at APOC and other models, and we created a model that we thought, I believe this represents what we do. And then we went in and we facilitated sessions with different stakeholders, and we had a series of them, and we time boxed them, and we held ourselves to account in terms of getting things done at a certain point. And it changed significantly, which was fine, but it gave them something to react to, and more importantly, they could visualize what it is.
Who owns those capability models? Is the business taking ownership of
So the contributors and the main directors and basically at a director level, we've designated specific directors that own these capabilities. So within product development versus marketing. And they have the last say in terms of any changes or updates. We facilitate the release of that information and the updates, but it's their call.
One of the next steps, I think, is then also, and mapping then to your applications, and then I think then the next step is to then see where your maturity is with those capabilities. So you have this business capability, you have tools that support it, vendors that support it, and then you can determine, you know, is this something that we need to continue to mature and invest in to get it to where it needs to be? Where are you guys at in your maturity models? Have you started that?
Yeah, well, I have a maturity model that I put together. I call it my 9-box grid. I think it's much more effective to have the business people do all of the scoring on maturities, period, right? IT always has great opinions. I never have to worry about IT having opinions. I care much more about what business people think because I want them to own it, right? And I find if we have IT doing too much mapping and scoring, it becomes all about the application, and I don't really care that much about the maturity of the application. That's easy to figure out. We'll just talk to the vendor, you know, whatever. But I just want to know what the business person thinks, and that's why I put together the definitions of how to actually score on a people, process, and technology. And it works great. People love it.
Would like to thank our panelists. Their passion certainly came through, so if we can thank them.